Hi, and welcome to my channel, Laura's Library Card. So I realized yesterday that I had never done my December wrap up. And I also haven't really put out very much end of year content, so that's coming soon. 2 weeks behind everyone else, but that's fine. So yeah, let's just dive right into my December wrap up. I say every month, let's keep this short, but I am super determined to keep this short because I read 15 books. So if this is shorter than 20 minutes, it's gonna be a miracle. Um, so I'm going to try really hard to just kind of give my thoughts about each book and minimal to no summary. So let's just dive right into December. Like I said, I read 15 books. That was a total of 4,608 pages. The breakdown is 2 paranormal romance, 2 historical romance, 2 nonfictions, 6 contemporary romance, and there was also 2 sort of contemporary romances that were Christmas books, but I kind of, in my head, put those as Christmas, holiday, whatever, and 1 literary fiction book. Altogether, I did not do so great on some diversity this month. I do have 1 POC author, 1 male author, and 1 LGBTQIA+ author, but everyone else appeared to me to be white women presenting. So, yay diversity. And overall for the month, my average rating after rating all these books was a 3.23, which is pretty much par for the course for me. I looked at all of the averages for every month this year, and I always rate, my average for every month is 3 point something. So I feel like I am relatively critical with giving my ratings, but also am generally reading what I like or like what I'm reading. I don't know. So, all right, let's dive into the individual books. I'm referring to all my notes here, which is why I'm like, the first book that I finished in December was The Daughters of Erietown. This is by Connie Schultz, and this is a literary fiction book. I listened to it on audiobook, and it was the choice for a real life fiction book club that I'm in. I did not really enjoy this book. The main 2 characters are Elie and Brick, and it takes place in and around Ohio. The author's from Ohio. Elie and Brick are a year or 2, within a couple years of my grandparents' ages, and it follows their life story. So I'm from Ohio. My grandparents are from Northwest Pennsylvania and Ohio, so this really should have resonated with me on many, many levels, and it just didn't. I felt like the story was flat. I wasn't connecting to the characters. She was just this perfect little sweet angel who could do no wrong. He was this total jerk who was a cheating guy who didn't care, who just didn't seem to respect her or care about her. And so we're just following their story, and I just felt like there was kind of too many elements that were trying to come together when we follow their daughter as another main character. And this book wasn't really working for me. It just was falling flat. And this was also all of the Twitter drama that happened at the start of December for me. So ultimately I gave The Daughters of Erietown 1.7 stars. It just didn't work out for me, even though there were a couple one-liner quotes that I thought were nice. So the second book I finished in December is No Rest for the Wicked by Kresley. I listened to this on audiobook. It is the second book in the Immortals After Dark series. I was happy to continue the IAD series. This book, No Rest for the Wicked, follows Sebastian and Katerin. He is a vampire, she is a Valkyrie, and this whole book is structured as an Amazing Race kind of adventure. So a bunch of immortals around the world are all competing for these various tasks, or in these tasks, and Katerin is determined to win, and Sebastian is determined to protect her and convince her to fall in love with him. And it's sort of their love story while they're running around the world doing all these hilarious hijinks that are silly things that immortals who don't care about, don't have to worry about death, are competing with each other. So I really enjoyed that aspect of the book, the fun Amazing Race stuff, and I felt like Sebastian really cared for Caterin, and I really liked this book, so I gave it 4 stars. The third book I finished in December was The Honey Don't List by Christina Lauren. I read this on ebook, and I read a big chunk of this in like October, and then I kind of just dropped it entirely for November, and then I came back to finish it in December. This book follows our 2 main characters. It's a contemporary romance. It follows our 2 main characters of Carrie and James. They are assistants for /to/ work on a show that is all about like home renovation, and they're like supporting this couple who are sort of like the Chip and Joanna Gaines, but like the couple like hates each other off camera. So that's like the main driving conflict of the book. And so I don't know, I like Christina Lauren in the past. I think I've said this a couple times on my channel, but like I feel like some of their standalones just aren't really working for me anymore. I don't know, their books are a lot more hit and miss. I have another Christina Lauren that I finished in December too that I'll talk about in a little bit. This book just was perfectly fine while I was actively reading it. And I thought that Carrie and James were kind of cute together, but also like the second I set it down to like go do something else, it was like gone. It was like forgettable. I forgot that I was even reading it, and it was not pulling me along to make me finish it. So ultimately I was just kind of disappointed. And also the structure of it was sort of like there was little interviews like with the police or something at the start of every chapter, and it was supposed to imply that there was this big deal that happens, and then like I didn't feel like that payoff was good for me, so I was just kind of like, Ultimately, I gave The Honey Don't List a 2.5 stars right in the middle. The next book that I finished in December was Heartbeat Braves by Pamela Sanderson. This is the Crooked Rock book number 1. That's the name of the series. I read this book. I actually won it from Romance Sparks Joy. They were giving a copy away, and I won the copy. So this book is a it's a workplace romance. It's contemporary. We follow Rayanne and Henry, and they are trying to get this urban Indian center like up and running. It's going to be like a community center. It's going to be a place for tons of research and programs, and it's just going to be this place where all these like native people can come together and hang out, and yay for community. But like she's worked there for a long time, and he's just brought in, and nepotism is at play here, and so they kind of resent each other at first, and then they start developing feelings, and so it's part like workplace romance and part like I wouldn't quite go all the way to like enemies, but just like a little bit of like resentment to love, hate to love. I thought this one was fine. It was very like kind of middle of the road. I felt like I wanted a little bit more of their characters. I felt like there was a lot of really cool, interesting stuff about the Urban Indian Center and like the development, and like having that as an element was also a way to kind of like instruct the reader a little bit about some like native cultures, but also like as a romance, I was kind of like, let's get back to our characters. And like, I just didn't really care too much about our 2 main characters, and then like they finally get together, and then they're like I love you instantly, and I was just kind of like, okay. So I enjoyed it, and I would be interested in reading more from Pamela Sanderson, but this book I just kind of gave a middle of the road 2.5 stars. The next book I finished in December was The Duchess Deal by Tessa. This is the first book in the Girl Meets Duke series. This is a historical romance, and it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. Our main female character is Emma. She is a seamstress, and our main male character is the Duke of Ashbury, and she shows up at his house wearing a wedding dress because he has broken off an engagement with this other lady, and she never got paid for the wedding dress because the wedding got canceled. So she like kind of shows up demanding payment, and he needs a wife. And so he basically like propositions her and says, hey, well, like I'll marry you. And she doesn't really like there's a lot of humor in it. And she kind of is like, well, I'd be stupid to turn down a duke. So she agrees. So it's a like marriage of convenience, and he's determined to not love her, and she doesn't think that she could love him either. But yeah, so it's sort of like there's a little bit of like a hate to love thing, because it's sort of like a Beauty and the Beast retelling. He's like scarred from the war or something. So I found this book, it was steamy, it was fun, it was funny. I really enjoyed that, like their banter back and forth, because she gives as good as as he doles out, and she snaps right back at him, and that was great. So ultimately I gave the Duchess Deal 4.2 stars and definitely want to read more Tessa Dare. So yes, even though I'm like about historical romance, I do think everyone who's recommended Tessa Dare to me was on the money, because I want to read more by her. The next book that I finished in December was another historical romance. This is My Fake Rake by Leigh. This was part of the Rake Appreciation Society's book for December. And this book is the first book in the Union of Rake series. So this book is a historical romance that we follow Lady Grace, and she wants a husband, but she is like this big nerd, and she's never like attracted a husband before, or like male attention. And she kind of has her eye on this guy. She's like, this guy's another big nerd. Like, I like him. I wish he would be like a great prospect, but he's never seen her as anything other than a colleague. So she enlists her friend Sebastian to like fake date her and inspire jealousy in this guy who's like her ultimate goal. So this book was like, I loved that premise because I like fake dating and fake relationship. And both Grace and Sebastian are these huge nerds, which I love. And so like they give him like a rake over to turn him into this like dashing rake, so that he will inspire jealousy, and she can, everyone will see that, when this guy is paying attention to her, she will be like more desirable. And of course it doesn't really work that way, because as they are working on his makeover, of course they start developing feelings for each other. So yeah, I liked this book. I enjoyed it. The author came on that chat for the Rake Appreciation Society, and that was really fun to talk to, or, kind of participate in the live chat with Leigh. So yeah, I definitely want to read more from her, and I give this audiobook a 3.5 stars. The next book that I finished in December was Wicked Deeds on a Winter's Night. This is the third book in the Immortals After Dark series. I listened to this on audio as well. And in this book, we follow Mariquetta and Bowen. Bowen is a werewolf guy, and Mariquetta is a witch. Part of this time frame overlaps with the second book, so both of them are participating in that like amazing race situation, and they're competing against each other, and they both kind of hurt the other person. Like, she curses him and he traps her, and so then he has to go and like kind of like rescue her, or like get her out of the trap so that she can lift the curse off of him. So there was a little bit of like forced proximity. Like, he feels like because of circumstances, he has to like be with her to get her from location A to location B. So they're like kind of forced to be together to like work toward this goal. But I don't know, for some reason the two of them didn't quite work as well for me. I think it was because like basically Bowen is concerned this whole time that she's put a spell on him, and that like what he's feeling isn't actually real. And then he also has this whole past where like his one fated mate has died, so then he's like convinced that if the feelings that he's feeling for her is actually because she is like reincarnated as that person. And so like Mariquetta is like, the whole book she just feels like he doesn't actually care about her, that she's just like this placeholder or this like second choice. And so for me, like I didn't like that was like a main internal conflict for so long, and I felt like we didn't get quite enough of learning about each of them. So I did enjoy the story, but I just rated it a little bit lower than the second book. So I ultimately gave Wicked Deeds on a Winter's Night a 3.6 stars. The next book that I finished in December was Expecting Better, and it has a long subtitle. But the author is Emily Oster, and this is a nonfiction book. And it deals mostly with like statistics and pregnancy, and sort of like what is the real thing that you need to know if you're going to be pregnant. So this is something I might eventually need in my real life, but also it has to do with my job, because I work with a lot of GYN OBGYNs. So this was actually a pretty interesting nonfiction book. I listened to the audio, and basically the whole point of this book is like, oh, when you're pregnant, your GYN tells you, yes, do this, don't do that. These are no-nos. And basically this author like did a bunch of research and was like, so what does the research show? Should you really avoid all deli meats, etc.? And then she kind of like presents her findings to you and leaves it up to you, the reader, to like make decisions about whether or not you really want to do that. So this, when I was quickly skimming through some like Goodreads reviews and stuff, there was a lot of people who were just like, no, why are you taking this econometrician's say so over like a doctor? And like on the one hand, I like kind of understand that viewpoint, but also the whole point of this book was that like she was like, look, I did a whole bunch of research on the peer reviewed journal studies that are done by scientists who studied these things and said, we don't find anything. Like you can like if you keep caffeine to this amount, doesn't seem to have any effect. And so I think that like the book was actually structured relatively well to say like, here's what I found, and then she kind of like leaves it up to you to make the final decision about whether or not you think that that's an important like risk or not. So yeah, but I also really like stats, so like this book was kind of doing it for me, and I ultimately gave it a 3.9 stars. So the next book I finished in December was In a Holidaze by Christina Lauren. This was the Page Turner Book Club's choice for December. I will leave a link to our video discussion up in the cards and down in the description. So this is a contemporary romance. In a Holidaze by Christina Lauren. I don't know if I just said that. I think I did. It's a contemporary romance with like a little bit of a twist where our main character finds out, or she gets stuck in like a time loop. So this was also a Christmas themed, holiday themed story. So we follow May and Andrew. Those are our two main characters. A lot of people in that group were kind of like grumpy about how many characters there were. I did a whole vlog on In a Holidaze. I'll also link that up in the cards and down in the description. Ultimately, this book I enjoyed, but also I felt like I didn't love the aspect of childhood friends to lovers, and so I was kind of felt like that was a little bit of a letdown, and Andrew felt a little bit of like a cardboard character for me. So ultimately, I only gave this a 3.7 star, but at the same time, like, that's pretty good. I enjoyed my reading experience, but like, reflecting back on this, I think I might lower that a little bit going forward. The next book that I finished in December was Tide Score by Elia Winters. I had this on ebook, and it is the second book in the Slices of Pie series, but I had not read the first book. It is a contemporary romance. I got this recommendation from Izzy over at Happy for Now. She did a video on pegging, and I was like, this book sounds interesting because it has like pegging, which I don't think I'd ever specifically read before. And also like the two main characters are like, it has to do with like nerds. The whole series has to do with nerds. And so our main female character, Iris, is this like nerdy artist who works for a video game company, and Owen is the main male character, and he's a baker. And so he is looking for a woman to be a little bit more dominant in the bedroom, and he's had a trouble kind of finding partners to do that consistently. And so he and Iris kind of start this fling, and then feelings develop as it goes along. So I enjoyed this story. There are BDSM elements. There's this like dom sub elements. But then they also start falling in love. So I thought it was cute and good, and I enjoyed it, and I gave it 3.5 stars. So the next book that I finished in December was actually a Christmas story. So it was called It's a Christmas Thing by Janet Dailey. I listened to this on audiobook, and I honestly had to like go on Goodreads and re-look up this entire book because I had zero memory of it, and it's been not even 2 weeks. So yeah, this book did not do it for me. It was really boring. We follow Rush and we follow Tracy. Rush is a veterinarian. Tracy is a judge. I was like, cool, lady judge, awesome. She was widowed like a year or 18 months before the start of this story. He had gone through a divorce right around the same time, but he's sort of been crushing on her for a while now, and she is still kind of grieving the loss of her ex-husband. And so for like the first 60% of this book, like he's like, oh, she's not emotionally available. And she's like, I'm not emotionally available. And then suddenly, randomly, he's like, you know what? I'm going to show her like what she's missing out on. And he like kisses her. And then she's like, oh, I think I love him. And it just did not work for me. It was too quick turnaround to love. Like, it felt like we spent way too long being like not open to each other for love. And I was just like, this is dumb. And it was boring. The book was boring. I didn't remember anything about it. It was forgettable. I gave it a 1.5 stars. Moving on. I then read a ebook called Faking It. The author is K Bromberg. This is a contemporary romance. Also, weirdly, didn't remember a single thing about it. Had to go look that up. So in this book, we follow Harlow and Zane. It's really relatable characters because he is a super hot Australian businessman billionaire dude, and she is a model, but she's just so down to earth. And basically this is a like fake dating situation where they kind of meet each other, sparks fly, but also they're like she misses a job interview because of him. And then he feels bad, so he invites her to this party, and then she tells a lie at the party, so then they have to work together, and they have to like pretend to be in this fake relationship because he is promoting his company he's trying to get off the ground, is a like dating website. So it's like an enemies to lovers, but it just didn't really work that well for me. I enjoyed it like while I was reading it, but then like as soon as I put it down, the characters were forgettable. I also didn't love how like he was like in turns like a jerk or like really thoughtful. Like I didn't feel like there was any like middle ground, and she like from the get-go was like, wow, this jerk is such a jerk, but like he's so hot. And I just was like, no, if he's a jerk, he's like not hot. Like, I don't know. So Faking It, I wrote down here that I gave it 3 stars, but kind of looking back on that, I'm like, was it really 3 stars? Maybe it was more like a 2.5. 3 more. Okay, so the next book I finished in December was Socially Distanced. This was a like novella. It was like 88 pages or something. I read this on ebook. It is by Shay Savage. I had been trying to look up something else by Shay Savage and saw this little novella was available, so that's why I got it. It is a quarantine story, and it was just, I don't know. I have a really hard time like rating novellas and short stories just because I never feel like we get enough. And so like that was sort of exactly the case here. We have our two main characters are Kendra and Sean, and they are both like carriers of this disease, plague, virus, whatever that is like sweeping across the land. And so they both have been like captured by the government and stuck in these like hotel rooms that like, and you can't leave because you're a carrier of the disease and they don't want you spreading it. But there's like essentially minimal to no story or plot in this book. It's basically just like both of them are like, we really are mostly in Sean. I think we're only in Sean's point of view, and he's just like, wow, it's really lonely here. Oh, there's a new woman next door. Okay, we are mutually enjoying ourselves by talking back and forth on the balcony. And then they manage to like break down the door between their 2 rooms, and then it's basically just all sex, and like there's no actual character development or emotional development. And then like they're allowed to be let go after they've been like vaccinated, and then like they're like, well, thank goodness we're together and I found you and that's how I survived. And I was just like, no. So that one didn't work for me, and I ultimately only gave it 2 stars. So the second to last book that I finished in December was another Christmas story. This was Merry and Bright by Debbie Macomber. I listened to this on audiobook, and I got this recommendation from Izzy at Happy for Now. She did a video about Christmas stories, Christmas novels, and I will leave a link up in the cards and down in the description. So Merry and Bright, we follow Jason Bright and Mary, spelled M-E-R-R-Y. She is a temp. She's working at this company for a year. She is crazy, crazy busy. And so her well-meaning mother and brother sign her up for an online dating site because she just like never gets out there. And so she starts talking to this mysterious other person, but they have this great connection. And it turns out that that is actually in real life her like boss at this job. And so it's sort of a workplace romance, but like they're not doing it in the workplace. And it is like a secret identity because they met online and just are using you know, like he goes by Jay instead of Jason. And so yeah, they it's like sort of secret identity, but also like they are really actually developing feelings for each other. So what I really appreciated about this book was that there was really great emotional development between the two of them as they got to really know each other through the online messaging part. So I really enjoyed that. I felt like that part was done really well in this book. Yeah, so ultimately I enjoyed Merry and Bright. I felt like the conflict was believable. I liked the story. I actually kind of like would have been happy for it to go a little bit longer. And yeah, so ultimately I gave Merry and Bright 4 stars and quite enjoyed it. And then the very last book that I finished on New Year's Eve, that I finished in December, is a nonfiction book that was called This Is Going to Hurt: The Secret Diaries of a Medical Resident or something. And this is by Adam K. I spoke about this in another, I think it was like a Stack Status video. This is a nonfiction book, and we follow our main character is the author. It's autobiographical in that these are some of his like diary and journal entries during the time that he was a like medical resident, but this took place in the UK, so it wasn't called that. And as he was like a practicing physician. And I found this book hilarious. I'm in the medical field. I know other people obviously in the medical field. I work with OBGYNs, and he became an OBGYN. So I really enjoyed a lot of these stories. There's definitely hilarious moments. I feel like that's more funny than not funny, but there are also sad moments. So like there are trigger warnings for like infertility and like miscarriages and that kind of thing. But also like overall, this was sort of just a commentary about being a doctor and dealing with patients, and also a little bit of commentary about like what it takes to become a doctor and how doctors are not, like he never felt like he was being paid for the work that he did, but also like the time that he put into that job was just like completely destroying to him having a life. And so like there are these like downsides to the job that he had not like realized going in. And I felt like it was a really interesting book, especially if you are somebody in the medical field. I would highly recommend it because I really enjoyed it. I thought it was funny, and I gave it a 4.7 stars. It was my highest rated of the whole month. Okay, so that was all 15 books that I read in December. I feel like it was a really great month. I definitely read some ones that are going to stick with me, and then also there's, when I was doing this list, I was like, I don't even remember half some of these books. So yeah, that was my December wrap up. It was a good way to end the year. I'm going to end this video now because it's already probably too long. So if you read any of these books that I was talking about, or if you have recommendations based on the ones that I said that I enjoyed, if you have recommendations for other historical romance authors, this is a subgenre that I'm just going to kind of keep trying on. Leave any of those recommendations or comments down in the comments. And don't forget to check out the videos and the book clubs that I mentioned. They are all linked down in the description, and some of them in the cards. And yeah, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and thank you for watching. Bye.